everyone, and welcome to another episode of Los Banos Talk. My name is Justin Collins. Today, I have a special guest with me from the California Health Collaborative, Stephanie Gonzalez, and she's going to talk to us about some of the things that their organization is doing regarding outdoor tobacco policy, youth prevention policy, and some other things. So, without further ado, I'm going to allow her to introduce herself.
Thank you, Justin. I'm really excited to be here with you today. My name is Stephanie Gonzalez. I am the program manager with the California Health Collaborative, specifically with the Merced County Tobacco Control Program. And our program does a lot of work around tobacco use, but specifically in the community of Los Banos, we're working on a smoke-free outdoor areas campaign. So we're educating the community about the harms of tobacco use and secondhand smoke.
Great. Okay, so specifically, all right, and we're going to talk about all that in just a moment, right after a brief message from our sponsor. And we're back. Thanks for watching. So, Stephanie, my understanding is that your organization has done some polls and some surveys on public opinion regarding tobacco use policy, outdoor policy, etc. Do you have some of that data that you could share with us?
Yeah, of course I do. Let me go ahead and share my screen if that's okay. I'm currently sharing my screen. So I'm going to share some information with you about the public opinion polls we collected in the city of Los Banos. These surveys were collected back in 2019. And we worked with our evaluator, Transforming Local Communities, to really analyze this data to, put the results into words, right? What does it mean? So we were able to collect over 130 surveys in the city of Los Banos, and we were able to find that about 85% of the respondents indicated that secondhand smoke in public places bothers them. So what does this really mean, right? Public places, what are those places? So within the survey tool, we asked questions about what type of places does secondhand smoke bother you? And some of those places included outdoor restaurant patios, sidewalks, and parks. Parks was a big thing that we found. People, or at least youth too, don't want to be exposed around. As you may or may not know, secondhand smoke actually contains 7,000 chemicals. 70 of them are actually known to cause cancer. And, there is no safe level of exposure to secondhand smoke. So that's why our program is very dedicated to educating the community about the harmful effects of tobacco use, but also secondhand smoke, not only to protect, our youth, but also those individuals who are at high risk, including the elderly, individuals who suffer from asthma, and other health conditions. So I'm sharing here the summary report from the public opinion poll. And one of the questions actually asked the respondents if they would support a local policy. And we found that 85% would support a policy that eliminates the use of all tobacco products at outdoor areas in their community. 50% did respond saying that they think their community would support a policy. So that just kind of brings it like a little question. Okay, we have an 86%, but 50% think that the community would support it. These results were collected back in 2019. So there's been obviously a time, some time that has happened.
So I have some thoughts on this. So some people may or may not know, but my degree was actually in social and behavioral sciences. So I did a lot of interpreting of statistics and a lot of interpreting of surveys. And this actually makes a lot of sense to me because one of them is measuring, do you personally support a policy But then the
Mhm.
other question is asking, do you think others do? And when they have
Mhm.
to think like, okay, do I think other people? Now it's kind of 50-50 because they go, well, I
Yeah.
know what I think, but I don't know if other people think like me too. So that's
Yep.
kind of interesting. But really, that number is not super consequential in a way because it
Mhm.
doesn't actually reflect how many people would support it. But
Yeah.
that number does matter because it makes people think maybe it's not as politically possible as I think it is because I think so many people are against it. When the
Yeah.
reality is that actually about 86% of people, which is huge, are
Mhm.
actually for it.
Yeah. And like I said, this survey was collected over a year ago, right? A year and a half ago, almost 2 years. Well, but we are currently collecting surveys, or we finished collecting surveys. So we should have an updated report within the next couple of weeks or month or so. So I'm interested to kind of see the increase or the decrease, kind of like the change of what the community thinks. Since the first wave of data collection that I'm showing right here on my screen, a lot has happened. Our community has been out in the city of Los Banos. We've been working very closely with our youth coalition, which is at the Los Banos High School. We're the high school students there. What we're going to be able to find with the new survey results is, was there a change, right? Does the community support this policy more? Do they support it any less? There's been a lot of things happening since the first wave of data collection. Obviously, COVID is a big thing. We've seen that, with COVID, it puts people at risk. If they have health complications, there could be some complications with their breathing. And obviously, secondhand smoke, it impacts, the individual's health, breathing being one of them. I'm not sure if you're familiar with EVALI, or it's e-cigarette, vaping, and lung injury illness. There was like this big thing, or it was all over the news about back in, let me see, it was in early 2020. It was related, like they were finding these health risks associated with vaping, and then a lot of individuals were dying because of the use of vaping. Well,
Right. Yeah, I was familiar. So a lot of it came from liquid vitamin E.
vitamin
Uh,
E.
and basically, vitamin E is FDA approved for human consumption, of course.
Yes, but not for inhalation. So what was
Right.
happening was that this, basically it's like an oil, right? It was kind of setting in the pockets of the lungs and, causing issues for the individual, making breathing very complicated and eventually fatal for some individuals. But, there's since that started kind of coming up in the news, there's been some research. I'm kind of interested to see what that research has come to find, because as we know, research, it's a process. It takes time to kind of put that for research studies to happen and kind of release that information. I have not yet seen too much information, but I'm interested to see like what the impacts are from like secondhand smoke exposure and things like that. But we're really committed to educating the community about the harms of tobacco use, and for tobacco products and e-cigarettes alike, because for vaping, there's, it does release some type of secondhand smoke, but it's in the form of an aerosol. So although you might not see it, it's a big white cloud, but there's still chemicals that are being exhaled, and individuals that are inhaling this toxic aerosol, could still be put at harm.
So I thought there was some interesting things that I recently learned kind of about vaping, and I actually vaped for a little while myself after I stopped smoking. And one of the things I learned was that the aerosols, the particulates, apparently some of them are so small that once they're inhaled, they actually kind of bounce all over the body and kind of can go pretty much anywhere, which I thought was interesting because they're so small they can basically go between cells, et cetera, and between tissues. Another
Mm-hmm.
thing I found that was interesting was regarding to those individuals that had succumbed to hospitalization or got pneumonia or were dying from basically from vaping, the doctors kind of described it as their lungs basically being coated with oil,
Yeah.
the body just doesn't seem to have a way to get rid of it. And
Mm-hmm.
what was interesting too was that some of them were nicotine vapors, but well over, I think it was like 75% were actually using THC or marijuana
Yes.
vape. And they found that
Mm-hmm.
that was really the primary culprit. Not so much that there was something
And
specific to marijuana versus the nicotine. The issue was is that the cartridges are less regulated. Sometimes
mm-hmm.
people, to make more money, basically kind of cut it
Yeah.
or water down the product. And what they were doing was they were using either vitamin E or vegetable oil in order to basically thin it out to make more
Mm-hmm.
money, repackaging it. People were inhaling it, and then it was creating this problem. But it was almost impossible for you to tell the difference between the fake product and the
Yeah.
real one. And I think the thing that alarmed me the most is actually how young many of the individuals were. When it comes to
Yeah.
smoking, we usually see people, get lung cancer or something, maybe in their 50s,
Yeah.
but
I
but
want to
these, there were
say,
people in their 20s that died of
yeah,
this. I mean, it's pretty
exactly.
nuts.
And the thing is, because with vaping, it's something new, right? Vaping has been around for a few years, for several years, right? But there's a lot more, it's like very trendy and attractive to the youth, right? With the flavors, there's actually over 15,000 different flavors in the industry right now. But these products, being targeted to youth, or they're attracted to these products, so they start at a much younger age. I know there's middle school students that have been vaping. 4 out of 5 youth actually start with a flavored product, and a lot of time that's a vaping product. So our goal with that is to make sure that we talk to the youth or educate the youth about the harms of vaping, and let them know, what these products, the tobacco industry is using these products as kind of like a targeting to get new consumers. So we share that information with our youth coalitions and with the community. We have a social media page on Facebook and Instagram where we share information about these different topics as well. It is scary because now, as you mentioned, the previous, you wouldn't see these health complications in a minor, at least a few years ago, right? Now it's more common.
Right. Well, these things are brand new, and they really weren't. So one of the things that's kind of what I think a lot of people don't get is when vaping first came out, because I remember, because I vaped like basically when it first came out, because I was trying to quit smoking. So initially it was sold as a safer alternative to smoking, or
Yeah.
a smoking cessation device, and then I would they had like different levels of nicotine, and then I was trying to like taper down on the nicotine, and this was, but what happened was is it's so accessible, like you could do it anywhere. I ended
Yeah.
up vaping more than when I smoked. And then when I tried to quit vaping, I think it was actually worse than when I tried to quit smoking. And I remember, I mean, I can think of, when I was a teen, and I first started smoking. I had my first cigarette. I remember thinking, this tastes awful, at the time, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to. I tried really hard not to cough too much, and tried really hard, not to seem like I didn't like the taste. And then as time goes on, you get used to it, and then you
Yep.
like it. But uh, it's like an acquired taste, I guess. But with but but with vape though, I mean, I remember when I first had a vape, and I was like,
There's a lot of flavors,
I
so
was
it
like,
masks the
this doesn't
harshness of the
taste bad at
taste.
all. I was like, this is
Yeah.
delicious. I was like, I remember like they were like, we have pina colada, we have, and they have
Yeah.
all these crazy names like,
Unicorn
fruity pebbles.
puke, and I don't know what else. It's like,
And they sound very kid-like. And I remember
yeah,
it's bubble gum, and this is like, and all these wacky flavors and stuff.
yeah.
And
And
then
it's
now
not
there's
just the
people.
flavors. It's not just the flavors. A lot of times the packaging too, they have like Fruit Loops, or if the trolley gummy worms, the packaging to the vaping products, it's almost identical, so
I also
it
found it was
only
kind of.
attractive to the youth, but it kind of like if a parent was to see this product on the child's desk and not be familiar with what these vaping products look like, they could easily just kind of look away and not know that that's a vaping product. It looks like literally a candy packaging. So that's it's scary and it's crazy at the same time.
And then I was gonna say, and then now I wouldn't call it a sport. I definitely wouldn't call it that, but I don't know what you call it. But there's kind of this thing where
Challenges.
these guys make like crazy rings and like stuff in the air out of the vape
Yep.
cloud.
Yeah. It's
And
all
that's
over
gotten
social
really
media.
yeah.
There's these, yeah, there's, there was a time where it was really popular on Snapchat. It was trending. You would use these hashtags, and vaping tricks was a big thing. If you go on there right now on Instagram, you'll be able to see that. There's all these challenges where people are doing these crazy figures with the bubbles, although it looks cool, right? But it's like a lot of times it's these kids, these minors that are either in middle school or high school that are the ones actually using these products, where these products were designed, for adults, but the youth are the ones that are using it because they are attractive. Are you familiar with the vaping product, the Juul?
Yeah, very familiar with that one. Yeah.
Yeah, so that one looks like a flash drive, right? It has a nicotine pod, which is this little cartridge, which is filled with the nicotine concentration. Research has shown that it has the same amount of nicotine as one packet of cigarettes. And youth go through these, not only do they use it just for themselves, but they pass them around. They, obviously these products can add up. They're expensive. Youth don't have jobs, or at least most of the time it's not very common for a minor to have a job, so they'll kind of share them, they'll pass them around, and then you run into other issues, right? They're sharing, their other diseases and things like that. So there's a lot that is happening around
Yeah.
vaping, and with our youth.
It's cheaper, right?
Mhm.
And then the other thing is, see, I can remember as a kid, it was, I couldn't really get away too much with smoking because my parents would,
The
smell it
smell
off
of it,
me,
right?
right? My truck used to stink. I'd throw cigarette butts out the side of the window, and then it'd fly and rip
Yeah.
around back into the truck bed. But or you'd have a lighter on you or something, right? But with the vaping, they don't really smell. And
No.
so,
And if they do smell, the flavor, it's either looks, excuse me, a lot of it when school was in session, or a lot of schools are back in session, but when the students were vaping in the classroom, they puff their vaping device and they exhale the smoke either into their backpack, into their sweater. They even just hold onto the breath that they're supposed to release. So all that smoke, they're inhaling it, and it's going deeper into their tissue, their lung tissue too. So
yeah,
is another
it's called
issue.
ghosting, and I've
Ghosting,
actually
yeah.
I've done that before when I vaped, which is, yeah, you inhale and then you just hold it. If you hold it
Hold
long
it
enough,
until it disappears.
you'll exhale and it'll be clear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, yeah, there's a lot of ways they can get, and I can remember as a teenager, I think my senior year, late junior year, going to high school, and then it used to drive me nuts wanting to smoke, but I couldn't do it until after school.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine the kind of problems it creates with concentration,
Yep.
headache, and all that when you're trying to sit in class and you've got to go 8-10 hours without vaping. Because honestly, the vaping was kind of worse. I've done both. I've smoked
Yeah.
cigarettes and I vaped. And the vaping, I mean, I would smoke about every hour, you know, but with the vaping, it was almost like nonstop. It
It
just
was nonstop.
I was like, it was, my wife would joke and say it was like glued to my hand, basically.
Hmm.
It never left my hand. It was a lot harder to quit than really the smoking was.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize really how bad it is, because a lot of us have kind of convinced ourselves it's like the safe alternative.
Hmm.
But really,
Yeah.
it's just kind
And
of an ignorance thing. We just don't
yeah.
know enough about it.
Yeah. And the tobacco industry, they're, you know, they know how to sell their products, right? They promote it as a tobacco cessation, but it's actually not approved as a tobacco cessation device, um, because of some of the reasons that you mentioned, you're more likely to just smoke continuously. So throughout the day, you're probably inhaling a higher amount of nicotine than if you were to be smoking. So it's not a certified device or like a proven device to help you quit smoking. At the beginning, they were promoting it as that, but obviously, that's not the intention of the device.
Right. Because when you smoke, you go outside, you have to walk all the way to wherever the smoking area is, and you smoke a few minutes, come back in, and cycle repeats. But
Hmm.
with vaping, a lot of times they don't even have to leave, the
Yep.
room or go anywhere. And then, as opposed to it being like do it all at once and then go an hour without, do it all at once. Most people who vape, it's just nonstop. It's just
It's
here and
nonstop.
there, just
Yeah.
constantly. It really turns into that very quickly. And I mean,
Hmm.
I know that from firsthand experience. I smoked for about 5 years and vaped for about two.
Hmm.
And I started vaping as a means to quit. And then I
Yeah.
did it for about 2 years, and then I ended up quitting cold turkey. And really, I got lucky on that. I
Yeah.
quit cold turkey against my will. What happened is I was deployed to Okinawa.
Hmm.
Japan does not allow
Oh,
vape liquid at that time. Now maybe they do now, I don't know. But at
maybe.
that
I'm not.
time,
I'm not sure.
liquid nicotine products were illegal, so I couldn't buy anymore. I had brought a bunch with me from the States, and then once I ran out, I was out. And
Oh,
ooh, that was bad. I gained like probably 20 pounds at least. And then, I mean, the
yeah.
headaches and stuff, it was
It's
awful.
the withdrawal symptoms. Your body's kind of
Yeah.
detoxing from it. Nicotine at the end of the day, it is an addictive chemical. So your body is going to go through that cleaning process of kind of trying to release itself from it. So those headaches are it's part of the process, but congratulations to quitting. I know it's hard. There's so many people that are trying to quit these products and they have a hard time, so it's definitely a success to be able to quit.
Yeah. At this point now, I have quit for like 7 years.
Wow.
And honestly, it is probably one of the things I'm actually maybe the most proud of
Yeah.
all the things I've done. I actually think that's like one of the hardest ones,
Oh yeah.
honestly. And I mean, it's really hard to quit. People who think it's easy, it's because
Yeah.
they've not done it. But I'm telling
Yeah.
you, it's so hard to quit.
Yeah.
uh
I personally am, I have some family members that are, they vape, they smoke too, and they tell me the same thing. It's like it's harder to do than what it's said, like than said to be done, right? You could say I'm gonna quit, but at the end of the day, when you try, it's a process, and sometimes it takes people multiple times, but it is possible, but it's gonna be a struggle. It's a challenge, but it could be done.
well, yeah, I mean, it's basically like, after you don't do it for a while, and I don't even mean that long, just past an hour,
Mm-hmm.
you start to basically feel sick. You'll start to
Mm-hmm.
get a headache, and then after a while, you'll feel sick, and then you will have like a really bad migraine, and then it'll be like all you can think about, and
Yeah.
all kinds of other physical symptoms that are pretty on top of the psychological. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really, really tough, and I don't think people realize what they're getting themselves into. I kind of like the commercials that I've seen where it kind of is like a kid signing a contract when he has his first cigarette, because it really is that. I mean, honestly, you're basically committing a lot of your time I remember I thought about it once. I was like, man, if I took all the time that it took me to walk to the smoking area, smoke, and then walk back, and I added all that up throughout the whole
And the
day,
money.
I basically spent hours. Yeah, I mean, I remember spending a few $100s a month on cartons. Um, Now, I will say I had somebody who joked with me once, and they said, you know, if you took all that money that you spent on cigarettes, you could have a Lamborghini or something by now. And then I joked with him, and I said, "Do you smoke?" He said, "No." I was like, "Then where's
Where's
your
yours?
Lamborghini?"
I've heard that one too. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah, yeah, that's
but
funny.
but so yeah, I get it. You know, hey, if you're not going to spend on that, you'll probably spend
You're
on
gonna spend
Starbucks
on
or
something.
something else. I get that, but the
Yeah,
main thing is really, you know, the health. Um,
yeah, definitely.
Still to this day, I have hardly any sense of smell, and I used to have one. Something about vaping, I
Hmm.
seriously lost like my sense
Yep.
of smell. I have like no sense of smell anymore. My wife
Hmm.
has to tell me when there's like if there's like a gas leak or something. It's like I seriously don't smell it. I've like totally lost my
Wow.
sense of smell, and it's never come back.
I haven't heard that one for vaping. I know that it's very common for like combustible cigarettes, your taste buds, you kind of lose your sense of taste, but the smell one, that's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to salt my food too much, and then I was used to that, and then I was used to my wife's cooking that way, and then when I quit smoking, I was like, "Oh, this is salty." And she's like, "It's I've not changed anything."
It's
But
always been like
yeah,
that.
but basically my sense of taste kind of came back.
Oh,
But you know, it is tough. I mean, it is rough on the I can only imagine going to school and then having that, and then it makes you sick more often. I used to get more like sinus infections and stuff.
oh
I noticed
yeah.
I was more sick back then when I smoked.
It, it
Um,
definitely affects your overall like immunity, right? So um, that's another reason why we always talk to the community that, okay, when you are smoking, not only are you putting yourself at risk to either get some other type of complications or health complications, but your immunity goes down, so you won't be able to fight off infections and things like that. You're more likely to develop asthma or bronchitis and ear infections and things like that.
and I know they said that vaping was supposed to be like a safer alternative, but one thing that was interesting was, see, I quit smoking and then I started vaping, and I vaped
Mhm.
for like 2 years. When I quit vaping, I was coughing a lot for like 2 to 3 months.
Mhm.
Similar to like when you quit smoking and you end up coughing a lot because your lungs are healing. I had the
Mhm.
same process happening when I quit vaping, and I
Mhm.
noticed my respiratory, like my cardio, got better. So I I really can't say that it's harmless because I
It's
there
not.
clearly was some kind of physical effect, at least on
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Traditional cigarettes, they may have a lot more toxic chemicals, and in vaping, obviously, there's probably less, but that doesn't mean they're completely safe, right? The vaping products are not completely safe. They have probably less chemicals, but they're still harmful. They still have, I think vaping products have at least 30 chemicals known to cause cancer. So they're still going to be damaging to your lungs and your body.
I think it's not just the what, but it's the where. And what I mean by that
Mhm.
is, vegetable oil is totally safe. Vitamin E is totally safe, unless you're inhaling it into your lungs. I
Mhm.
could
Yeah.
eat vegetable oil, and that's not a big deal. But
Yeah.
to
But you
inhale it,
definitely do not want to inhale it. No.
it's something totally different. And so, I mean, to think about that too, it's like you'd eat chocolate, but should you vaporize it and then inhale it into your lungs? Like,
No.
does anyone think that's rational or good? But it's the
Yeah.
same. It's the same logic we take. We go, well, it's safe to eat, vegetable oil, so it must be safe to smoke vegetable oil. And it's like, no,
No,
it doesn't.
definitely
It
not.
doesn't
Not the
work that
same
way.
thing.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So these products, they're harmful, so we definitely want to make sure that we're out in the community, we trying to bring awareness about them. In the city of Los Banos, like I mentioned, we are working on a smoke-free outdoor like educational campaign. We've worked with some community residents. We've partnered with Cultiva la Salud, the Poderosa or Powerful People group. It's a group of mostly women, but it's these parents from Los Banos that are very passionate about making change in the community related to health issues. So shared information. We actually met with the previous city manager back in 2020, and we talked to him about what their concerns, and not only the secondhand smoke exposure, but tobacco litter too. Our program, with our youth coalition, we did like a tobacco cleaner at I can't even talk. It's a tobacco cleanup at Pacheco Park, and we collected over 1,300 cigarette butts in just 40 minutes. Obviously, that park, there's a high amount of homelessness and individuals that kind of hang out in that area, so it's populated. So that probably is one of the reasons why there was such a high number. But it was still crazy because it only took us 40 minutes to collect those cigarette butts, and that's a really high number. So we're like, okay, this is definitely an issue. There's tobacco litter here, So we presented that information to the previous city manager, and he was just like in shock seeing them, because we took them in a container. We collected them all, and it's just crazy to kind of see them in person. It's like, oh wow, like this is how much that is. But we're hoping to, the city would consider some type of policy to create, healthier smoke-free environments. There's nothing formal going on right now, but we are, continuing the education to decision makers, obviously, and partnering with our youth and adult partners.
Are you guys interested in trying to, I guess, convince our city council or something to adopt some kind of legislation that would like ban smoking, say in like public parks, and maybe like a certain distance in front of buildings? Can you give us an idea? Is there like another place you've done this, or like what kind of it would look like?
So our program has been working in the community of Los Banos for the past 2.5, 3 years. And, we've been focusing on education. Policy takes a long time, it's a process. So we've been focusing on educating the decision makers. As we know, every couple of years there's a change. So we've been trying to educate the new council members. We presented to city council during public comment back in 2020, before the whole COVID situation. We haven't been on the formal agenda. That's kind of our goal, to present a possible policy during public comment. I've shared sample policy with the mayor, and I believe that the chief of police is currently the city manager for right now. I know was some change with that. Not too familiar what's happening.
Yeah, currently the police chief is the acting city manager. That's correct.
Exactly. Yeah. So we shared some sample policy with him a couple of weeks ago, but I'm not sure where that's gonna go. But we're available. Our program's available to to discuss that and see if it is an option. We would definitely be able to provide the support for that. I know the community, at least the community that we've been working with, the community members, they're in support, and they would love to have that.
Well, one thing that there is from this, if that was to happen, is that it actually does give police officers a tool, something that they can use to clean up the park. So, for instance, somebody's at the park and they're smoking, and that violates a city ordinance. That now gives them the authority to actually make that person stop or leave the park. Whereas if it is legal, there's really nothing to do,
But and currently in the city of Los Banos, there is no policy that prohibits smoking in these parks and outdoor areas. So that's kind of the goal, if the city of Los Banos was interested, we could definitely help with the sample policy, and enforcement. That would definitely fall under the hands of law enforcement. But educating the community about, hey, you know what, you can't smoke here anymore. These are some of the reasons why you can't, and kind of, if they do want to quit, connect them with the proper resource, such as tobacco cessation.
Great. So since you've talked with the police chief and I guess the mayor and such, Can you characterize maybe their sentiments towards it? Did they seem like they were kind of supportive or interested or
Yeah.
receptive?
So I was able to talk to the mayor, and he definitely was interested in, in a policy like this, um, reducing exposure to secondhand smoke. I haven't had the chance to talk personally to them, to the chief of police, about this issue. It was more through email, but I know he has a lot on his plate right now, especially with the new transitions. I'm interested to kind of see where this is going to move forward. But as far as the other city council members, um, we had spoken with Veronica, but she's no longer on the city council, but she was all in support of it. So we're still kind of trying to identify who would be a champion in this, around this issue. But we're trying to meet with them, but it's been a bit, I'm going to be honest, it's been hard to meet with our decision makers in the communities in general, the other communities we've been working on. There have other issues going on right now with like the COVID, opening, and, there's so much going on. So I understand tobacco is not like the number one priority at the moment, but we definitely want to make sure that it does not get forgotten. And if we could create smoke-free environments, especially as things are opening up, I think that'd be something amazing.
Well, I mean, to me, it is pretty relevant still because I mean, COVID. COVID largely affects
Mhm.
people respiratorily speaking. So secondhand
Yes.
smoke and reducing it, especially during a pandemic that affects respiratory, I mean, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and that's kind of the that we're going with. I've sent emails to the decision makers in the city of Los Banos, kind of talking to them, explaining to them, we know that COVID, like you said, affects the respiratory system, but so does secondhand smoke. And whenever you combine those two situations, if there's going to be secondhand smoke, and then you have these individuals that might be at risk of developing COVID, we want to create a healthier environment or reduce the chances of them being exposed to either secondhand smoke or COVID or whatever the case may be. But, there's been, I guess they have other things that they're working on. So I think it would be amazing if this could be kind of brought up in the conversation again, so it doesn't get forgotten.
Well, I definitely would say, I mean, keep trying. And I mean, honestly, it's kind of unfortunate to hear, but it's something I've seen, constantly brought up, COVID going on as a reason to not address maybe a particular issue. There's a lot of different things that have gotten done, on the agenda that have nothing to do with COVID, that are
Mhm.
totally not top priority.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things that still go on and get done. At this point, we're like a year into this thing, and
Yep.
so it's not
Over a
really
year.
new and kind of should be adjusted. And actually, the city doesn't really even make that many decisions regarding the pandemic anyway. They kind of just have to do what the state tells them, and then the county. So um I mean, the reality is that, yeah, no, the pandemic is not really an excuse to basically stop decision
Yeah.
making. uh
Yeah. And that's what we're really trying to do. We don't want to get kind of forgotten or put in the back burner kind of thing. But I know our youth has been our youth members of the coalition, they, I think they're getting ready, or if not, they have already sent them, but they wrote letters to the city council members, kind of talking to them about their concerns and, maybe the importance of smoke-free outdoor areas. So we're, kind of using different approaches about how to go about this, because we don't want it to get forgotten. This is going to continue to be an issue, so we would definitely want to address it.
Great. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say you can talk to the council members, obviously, of course.
Mhm.
But another thing is also just talk to the people. And if enough
Yep.
people care and talk to the council, then that's something too. So
Yeah, and we definitely want to make sure that we demonstrate to the council that we have the support from the community, right? This is something that the community wants. So hopefully we are able to get, onto the agenda to talk about this issue and talk about possible options, for a policy.
Great. Well, before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to add or say?
Yeah, we do have social media. So if you are interested in kind of joining our efforts, whether it be, meeting with decision makers or continuing the education, or if you have a youth, a high school student that's interested in working with us, we do offer community service hours. Obviously, things look a little bit different right now, given, the working from home situation, but we have so many other events, so many events happening virtually, such as a virtual paint night that's going to be happening on April 21st. You can find the flyer. It's going to be available on our Instagram and Facebook at MCTCP 209, or you can search us by our name, Merced County Tobacco Control Program, and send us a message if you want more information.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, Justin.
All right. If you haven't already, please like, follow, subscribe to Los Banos Talk. We have Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and of course, losbanostalk.com. You can become a supporter of Los Banos Talk and gain access to exclusive content and get all the videos first and ad-free. Once again, my name is Justin Collins, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.